All right, and we are live. Dr. Cohn, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, Dr. Pride. What's happening?
Oh, man.
Expect miracles. Expect miracles.
This is one of my favorite hats, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to abovedown.co for sending me this. I love this hat. Man, I'm excited to bring you on just because you've been doing this a long time. You've got an amazing perspective on things. You've run one of the best natural health centers on the planet. One that I now have the privilege and honor of being able to work in. And you've been doing this for 30 years, and you've helped thousands of people. And just to get your perspective on things, I'm really excited about that. And you're one of the first people who I've announced I'm speaking about, where people are actually bugging me, like, when are you coming on? So thanks for doing this, man.
Hey, my pleasure. And we're excited about having you be part of our team here at the Cohn Health Institute. And I'm sure we'll have fun chatting it up today and seeing where it goes.
I think so too, man.
Sure.
Well, you kind of made some waves and stirred the pot a little bit not too long ago. You spoke at the Orange County Board of Supervisors on this mask issue, and you got enough attention that Howard Stern even ended up putting your clip out of you speaking. What were you thinking when you were making that speech?
I wasn't thinking about Howard Stern, that's for sure. I mean, I was there. You know, I had never gone to one of these before. I was there because people in our community were speaking out, you know, moms and business owners and concerned citizens and people that just knew that what was going on was just not right. They didn't feel it in their heart. They didn't feel it in their soul. They didn't feel it in their head when they thought about it. They just knew something wasn't right, and they wanted to speak out about it. And they wanted to let their elected officials know their opinions. And you know, obviously there were some very impassioned people. There are some very credible people. And a lot of things were pointed out that day that were not just inconsistent in Orange County, but inconsistent in the world. And it was really at the end of the day about freedom. You know, here we are, July 3rd. We're about to go into our Independence Day, which just really signifies what our country is all about. And as you know, we have always stood for health and medical freedom. But now it's encroached on all of us, and our God-given unalienable rights are now been infringed upon, and without good reason, and without good data, and with a lot of inconsistencies. And I wanted to do my part as a business owner in this community, as well as somebody who is a health practitioner who has always been vocal in this community, teaching people that their body's designed to heal itself if they're given the right things to do it. And we saw that government ignorantly was interfering with people's ability to actually practice and maintain good, sound, proven health habits that flew in the face of, just not my opinion, but things like the CDC and the World Health Organization, even though they have riddled with their own inconsistencies and corruption and the conflict of interest, still had stated that what was going on and what we were doing, what was being mandated, was not proper, as well as OSHA, you know, our health and safety organizations and things were being violated, and then people were acquiescing and just going along with it without ever stopping and thinking that maybe it's not right. So, and the rest is history, right?
Yeah, and I think that's been a lot of people's concern about these mask mandates, or mandates of any kind,
Right.
is the health and well-being of the individual who's being mandated to do these things isn't even taken into consideration, because you can measure, I could take a pulse oximeter out of the drawer right now, put it on my finger, put on a mask, and my blood oxygen will drop several points, and the individual isn't even considered. And like you said, it's mask up, it's stay apart, and we're not having this important conversation about why are people's immune systems so weak in the first place, and what can people do? How can we empower people to get healthier and get well and become stronger, so they don't have to live in fear right now?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the people, you know, when we look at what we're all supposedly supposed to be concerned about, you know, my friend's uncle's grandparent who has, you know, a pulmonary disease from 20 years of smoking, or eating like McDonald's for another 10 years and or 20 years, or just drinking and not taking care of their body. Somehow everyone else now has to change their whole life to make it okay so this person may not get exposed to something, which they may or may not get exposed to anything. And everything we're doing flies in the face of not just common sense and normal biology and how the immune system has always been known to work. But it's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy because things are not allowed to run their course like they normally have, even though we have similar coronaviruses throughout years past, whether it's SARS or MERS or, all the different things that we've been through, that we've had a spike where certain people who were susceptible got affected and those who were not just breathed through it. We somehow did not, or were not allowed to actually do what we've always done. Now, whether it's a political thing because of an election year, or whether there's a bigger thing at hand when we look at powers that be and billionaires vesting in things like mass vaccination, contact tracing, tracking, and all these different things, chipping us and surveilling us and making us look more like the countries that people are fleeing from to get here for safety and freedom and sovereignty and all of these things, which many of our youth uneducatedly are so easy to give up on, only because they're not educated on for tons of other systemic reasons that are not the systemic reason that is popular in the news.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So how much, I want to know your opinion, because you've been in practice a long time. You've helped lots and lots of people through natural means. How much of our immunity, how much of our resilience is really within our control? I mean, how much power do we really have over our health and well-being, and how much is genetic? How much happens to us? My opinion is we have a lot more power than we've been led to believe.
Well, the best of science, scientists, PhDs, Nobel laureates, everyone pretty much agree it's somewhere in around 2% of our issues are genetic, and 98% of them are really environmental. They're epigenetic. It's what we think, what we eat, and what we do to our bodies physically that will either add to our demise or build our health. And so, there's only one way to coast in life, Dr. Casey, and that's down. So you're either building your health or it's going away. And everything we put in our mouth is a molecule. Every piece of food or drink is a molecule of wellness or a molecule of sickness. So if I'm going to sit there with a 64-ounce Coke from the 7-Eleven and think that my body's going to be better for it in any way, I'm one step closer to whether it's cancer, diabetes, stroke, heart disease, or whatever, anything else that sugar is going to feed. If I'm eating a raw green vegetable, chances are that I'm building my health in most cases. Conversely, the thing is, though, it's, if you had a head of raw broccoli in one hand, a Krispy Kreme donut in the other, for most Americans, the donut hand is the one that gets emptied while the broccoli turns brown and dies without anybody eating it. So, we are ruled by our palate. We are manipulated by companies and food processing and all these different things that have a vested interest in a couple of things. Number one, selling us junk because it's cheap. Two is keeping us ill, keeping us sick, to keep us in a system that makes us a slave to it. So whether we're a financial slave because of how our economics are run, or we're a health slave or disease care slave because all the things that we get exposed to, the stresses we're under, and how we handle our body physically or don't handle it physically is leading to situations that will require us to be dependent on intervention. Now, there's a whole host of natural interventions that people can do, but it takes a little thought, takes a little consciousness, takes an action step, and where we're educated on not that. My mom was a nurse, so I grew up with a medical professional as a parent. So I thought health was this cabinet in the bathroom with 6 rows of pharmaceuticals, and whatever I was bitching about, whatever hurt, whatever didn't work right in my body, there was a drug that supposedly would help me with that. Now, what it did was it helped me manage a symptom, but it never did anything to help me create health. So, medicine is a disease care system. What we do at the Cohn Health Institute and what you do is natural health care, which is feeding your body and removing interference so that the body can take over and heal itself. Again, the way it was designed. So, we live in a world where people are more worried about what kind of insurance they have, whether they're doing anything for their health, which again is something that we've been manipulated into from a system that feeds a bigger machine called Big Pharma, which is really ruling and running the puppet strings and those who control it. Where we're not building our health. We're not there. There's no such thing as health insurance in the United States. There's only disease insurance. It only pays for when you're sick. So you got to wait till you get sick rather than pay somebody to be healthy. But if you're paying somebody to be healthy, there's no drugs involved. Very rarely is there drugs involved. And if there are, a very short period of time to pull you out of a crisis. So again, so you can get back on track with what was supposed to keep you well and healthy to begin with. And these are fundamental things that we have taken for granted because we have learned these things. Now, like everyone else, I was not raised on this. You were lucky enough, I know, because I don't know if all your viewers know, but both your parents were chiropractors, so they were part of the largest drugless healing art in the world and the biggest nemesis to medicine as we know it, because they were people that raised you with respect for the human body and its ability to heal itself. And miracles were commonplace. They weren't just on hats, right? They were things that we saw each and every day, which is the miracle of the body and how it, again, is designed to heal itself.
Yeah. Well, man, I think a lot of people resonate with your message. And, you and I have both been putting out content lately, and some of yours and both of ours has gone viral and reached a lot of people. And I think we're saying things that a lot of people are thinking, and it's on a lot of people's hearts that they either just don't know how to say, or
Right.
they're too scared to say because there's such a shame culture right now where if you speak your mind and it goes against the mainstream, you're silenced and shamed. What can people be doing right now to really ground in faith and ground in love and really make a difference? Because I think right now people just feel so powerless.
That's a good question. Feels like, every day I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, this is happening. The zombies are walking around with masks on, and everyone's scared of a boogeyman virus, and everyone's watching the TV, and the TV is telling them a reality that is not reality, but it's the reality they want people to believe. And somehow overnight, feelings have become more important than facts, and people are doing some crazy ass things, even to the point of innocent people getting hurt and being killed or dying or being misappropriated or whatever is happening in the name of whatever, whether it's politics or a cause they may or may not believe in or think is real when it might not be, or whatever anybody's sensitive about right now. So, the truth will always set you free, but usually it will piss other people off if it flies in the face of a narrative which they're, Kool-Aided themselves on. So it's really hard to imagine. Now, just like the sheepdog who is guarding the sheep, it's only one dog, and then there might be 100 sheep. And, if one sheep rushes the dog will bark at the sheep will get scared and go back with the flock. But if 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 just did it, there's a tipping point. You don't need every sheep. There's a tipping point. When there's enough sheep, then the dog can't do anything else, and then the rest of the sheep just follow. I believe some accounts that I've read about the what led to what we're going to celebrate tomorrow, which is the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776. And what happened then is that a handful of people, and I mean a handful, that had everything to lose, and these were people that didn't have nothing. They were wealthy people, and they had status, and they risked it all. And I believe when they did it, it's been said that there wasn't 100% of people on board with severing their ties with Britain, because most people were scared. But it was somewhere in and around 13% of the people believed. That's it, 13%. And the rest eventually followed, most of which, and everyone else, that's what we're doing. It's on. And that's what was happening. So it doesn't take a lot to create that movement. It doesn't create a lot to create that change. And just like you see life as we know it switching, we as a people can switch it back. I was reading something or heard something. I don't know, I have so much crap in my head. It's become like a full-time job, keeping up with the craziness that's happening in the world. Because patients come in and have you heard this, you heard that, you seen this, you seen that, and it's like it's one thing after than the other. And never before, people actually read the Constitution as they're watching it being, smoked, or disregarded by the very people that we've elected to protect and defend it. And you see that people are being divided rather than coming together. And just like you said, there's really, it's at the end of the day, we're all in this together. It doesn't matter what color your skin, your gender, everything that people like to create differences over. We are all in this together. Like we said before, this has been a land that people come to be part of something, the American dream, to experience something called capitalism, to experience all these different freedoms that we have. And for the first time, I don't want to say for the first time ever, because it's been going on a long, long time. I think I've been called a conspiracy theorist for over 30 years, as each and everything that we said was a conspiracy actually comes true. Whether people want to acknowledge it or not is irrelevant. I mean, as they say, the truth will always be the truth, even if nobody can see it. Just like a lie will always be a lie, no matter how many times it's told. Although if we look at these dictators throughout time, they always had the same saying, which is if you tell a lie loud enough, long enough, people will believe it. And they also said the best way to hide the truth is put it right in front of somebody, because they'll discount it. Like, you can see the truth on the internet, you can see the truth on your Facebook, you see the truth, but that stuff has been shadow banned, that stuff has been now censored as craziness. And so for the first time ever, the First Amendment is apparently dwindling. And then anytime somebody goes after exercising their Second Amendment right, they're now turned into some kind of demon. Although for the first time, for the biggest time in history, there's been more exercising that Second Amendment right, especially in like gun ownership and so on and so forth. And believe what you will, have your opinions, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I remember reading something. It was somebody said that for the somebody who was a Japanese soldier was captured in World War II or something like that, and they said that, why did you guys never invade the U.S.? The answer was, well, the U.S. has more citizens that are armed than anywhere in the world. So when the military can beat another military, they win and they take over. But there's something special about the U.S. where it's not. I mean, this place is founded by the people for the people, and no matter what is done to the people, there are good people. And I was watching a podcast last week with some people that I agree with some things and don't agree with others, which again makes this country so beautiful because we can agree to disagree. But one takeaway I had from that is, the optimistic outlook, which is, what? There's a lot of bad people out there. There's a lot of evil people out there. There's a lot of people that want to do people harm all in this country. But at the end of the day, I believe there's more good people than there are bad people. And like Einstein always said, he goes, every human being will have one decision, the most important decision they'll ever have to make in their life, which is the decision of whether we live in a kind world or a hostile world. And what you focus on, you get. And I think that's what he was trying to focus on, or have people look at when he made that statement. And although I still believe that we live in a kind world, it is harder and harder to see it because the ugliness is on display and the theater of it is being promulgated in this election year by the mainstream media, who really is fear-porning the whole world right now to be scared of everything, to go against common sense, to mask themselves up, to do all these crazy things 6 feet apart, and you can't gather. It's just the inconsistencies that all has everybody know it's all bullshit and it's all a lie. But God forbid you say any of this stuff like I did. And I don't know if people can comment on whatever we're talking about here, but if they are,
again, yeah,
there'll be some very colorful comments of whatever, which is great. People can speak whatever they want to speak. Doesn't mean it's going to be intelligible. Doesn't mean it's going to make sense, but it's their right. It is their right. And the saddest thing is that one thing that we always lean on is comedy. We like to laugh about things and make fun of things, and God, it's so hard to even do that without every little snowflake getting offended by everything. You know, what we used to joke about is like, oh, I'm taking offense. And like, why are you taking offense? Gosh, silly. You know, it's crazy. Anyway, yeah, all that.
Well, yeah, that's one thing you told me right at the beginning when I got here. Because when I first got here, I was still getting settled in, and I made that video that ended up hitting a million plus views in a week, and a lot of arrows started coming my way, as you know, and not just my way, the clinic's way. And I remember pulling you aside. I think I posted that video on a Monday, and by Tuesday it hit about 40,000 views, and I was like, ooh. I said the name of the clinic. There's a chance that the clinic's going to get attention over this. I better pull Dr. Cohn aside and fill him in on what's going on. And I remember sitting in your office, and you're like, well, let's watch it. And I showed it to you, and you're like, when are you making your next video? And I said, man, I'm worried about doing it. And I said, I definitely don't want to reflect on this, clinic in a negative way. And you said those exact words. You said, last I checked, we live in faith, not fear. And you guys have always been 100% behind me on that, and 100% behind anyone who works in this office to speak their opinion, share the truth. And like you said, we can always agree to disagree. What we are all about in this office is choice. We have people who choose. We have practitioners who choose to wear masks when they practice. We have some patients who choose to wear masks when they come in, and we always respect choice. We're not here to take away choice. We have our opinion, but ultimately, you get to choose how you're going to care for your health and your own well-being. And that's just one thing I really appreciate about that office is we can be different. We can think differently, and it's okay. We don't want to live in an echo chamber, because it's that kind of push and pull where we disagree and we each bring different perspectives, where I think the truth is, that's where we find what the truth really is. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. I mean, listen, we're in Southern California. First of all, anybody can come in wearing whatever they want, right? In the summer, some people hardly wearing anything. Other people wearing Carmen Miranda hats. Whatever you want to wear, it's going to make you comfortable. Great. We don't need to ask you why. It's really, again, the mandating, like you start off at the beginning, the mandating of something. If I had to tell everybody they had to wear a football helmet, or I'm waiting for the next joke, which is like, everyone in Southern California, maybe, Gavin Newsom's going to tell us to hop on one foot. And I'm going to look out the window, everyone's going to be hopping on one foot, because do you need science behind it? Apparently not, right? So I mean, like, this weekend, like, they just shut the clubs down, the bars, the beaches on 4th of July, Newport Beach. Are you kidding me? But somehow in Napa, it's wide open. And I think our governor has a winery up there, or interest in a winery, or a cloaked interest in a winery up there, and somehow that's open. So I'm like, apparently the Napa grapes are used to, especially for the wine, are used to keep people from getting COVID. So how about that? Who knew? So everybody should flood there and say hello and fill out their recall, thing.
Yeah, there's definitely some conflict of interest there. I saw that as well, that Gavin Newsom does own a winery that is allowed to stay open over 4th of July weekend. And
retard.
There's just something about right.
No, so you talked about, I don't know where I went on that. So you talked about freedom of choice. It is freedom of choice. People come here all the time. This obviously, we have the Cohn Health Institute. There's been a waiting list to get in here for over 25 of the 30 years that we've been in practice. We have doctors that do everything. It's really a one-stop doc, and we show people, again, how smart their body is, how it's designed to heal itself. We have all kinds of different clinics that we're spidered out with, that we work with around the world, medical clinics, holistic clinics, alternative care clinics, you name it, we do, because it takes a village to help people get from where they're at in their health to where they'd like to be, and want to honor wherever anybody's at. A lot of people come in like myself, and in the beginning, a very medical background, didn't have this knowledge. It's not my first language. It became my first language, or came a language that I'm so fluent in that you would think it was my first language, but it was not my upbringing. So, the first thing to do, you can't fill a full glass, meaning, like, people come in and they have their ideas and their opinions about what they think is true. And if those would work out for them, then they wouldn't have been here to begin with, because their body would have done what it was supposed to do. But it's not. And then they get to learn that their body can tell them things using different types of therapies, functional muscle testing, flight kinesiology, core specific technique like you do, quantum neurology, a neuroemotional technique, all these different things. You could access information about the body and get information about why it's not self-healing the way it was designed, what things can help it function the way it's supposed to. And then when you are having threats, whether they're physical, emotional, or biochemical, how do you offset these threats? And there's very specific ways to do that, and a lot of information that we can do to get that. We do many times traditional medical testing like you see, whether we're getting MRIs, CAT scans, lab tests, stool analysis, air analysis, everything you possibly think of to get information about what's happening in somebody's body at any given time, plus functional testing to really see what's happening with their bodies at real time, so that we can give them information. Now, the word doctor comes from the Latin word docere, which means to teach. The goal is to teach people how to take care of themselves so they're not dependent on doctors and they're not dependent on interventions. So they use these things that we do here to help them get from where they're at to where they want to be. Because the reality is everyone's just where they're at. And we want to meet everybody where they're at and help them move forward based on what their goals are for themselves, not just what we think should happen for themselves. We'll let them know if we find things that are really something they should be concerned about. However, people don't know what they don't know till they find out they didn't know it. And once they find out, things change. And that's really what we're all about. We're about educating people so they're not dependent on us, so they can choose to come see us to get their goals to happen. Yeah.
That's one reason that attracted me to this clinic is that stance where, health doesn't have to look like a drug. It doesn't have to look like a surgery. In fact, I would say that's not health. That is sickness management.
Mm-hmm.
Health is all about healthcare starts with the decisions you're making in the grocery store. Like you said, what you're putting in your mouth, just your decisions you make on a day-to-day basis in your lifestyle. That is most of it. And so when it comes to people's health, one, they have more power than they realize. And with that power and choice comes a responsibility. If you have a say and a choice and a power in the direction your health goes, then ultimately you're the one who's responsible for it at some level at least. So that's one thing I really appreciate about that. And, you had mentioned something about this whole conversation around COVID and COVID, the masks and everything like that. Is the media and everyone involved and connected to media have done a really good job of creating what I've been calling the illusion of consensus on this whole topic, that there is a consensus that it has to look like people wearing a mask. There's a consensus that it has to look like we wait for a vaccine. And when the reality is there is no such consensus. Maybe the loudest voices are the ones who agree on this. Maybe the ones who are funded by the pharmaceutical industry are the ones who agree on this. But there are plenty of doctors like you, like myself, like the hundreds of doctors and nurses around the world who have reached out to me in recent weeks and months who are totally on board with this message of empowerment and this message of choice. So if you're one of those people out there who is afraid of speaking out because you feel like you are in this tiny, tiny minority, that's not the case. There are so many people like you who are just waiting for someone like you to step up and speak up and empower them to do the same. So my challenge to anyone listening is take that risk and speak your mind and do it from a grounded place of love and faith, and be kind, but don't be afraid to speak up about what you know is right. And man, I appreciate you getting on here with me. It's always, I love any time we get to chat, and I just want to give you the floor. Whatever's on your heart, I'll let you finish up the call and just speak in your mind.
Well, to say what you're saying, and as people are listening, they go, well, that's great, but if I speak my mind, I might lose my job. If I speak my mind, my spouse will do this. If I speak my mind, my kids won't talk to me. If I speak my mind, I can get canceled, or in this cancel culture, if I speak my mind, I may lose business. If I speak my mind, I will lose friends. And how do I know that? Because this is what people say to me all the time as to why they're not speaking with their mind, but behind closed doors they go, I really appreciate everything you're doing and saying, keep it up. I wish I was braver. And, there was a wise man once who was one of the gentlemen responsible for us having freedom in the United States, who I believe said, a man who will trade freedom for security deserves neither. And if there's a lot of great warriors out there right now that are doing great things, that are really leading the charge, not just in this community, but around the world. You know, in this community in Southern Cal, we're very fortunate. We have people like Lee Dundas. We have people like Peggy Hall. We have people like Corey Lee Williams. We have Billy DeMoss. We have all these different people that are speaking out and using their voice and using their heart and using their mind to really be strong for those who do not feel strong. And to quote Dr. Corey Lee Williams, he always said, it's very important that we do not acquiesce. It's very important that we do not take the breadcrumbs. It's very important that we realize, especially on the holiday that's coming up, is that we respect what this country is all about. We respect the flag. We respect everything about it, because people risk their lives, and many have given their lives and come home wrapped in a flag, in a box, covered with a flag, and that's what their spouse or their children or their parents or their siblings or their friends now see of them, having given their life for an ideal that many of us has taken for granted, and many of our youth have never really lived through what it's like to go through the hell that it is and was for many, for us to be able to sit here like you and I and just have the freedom to talk. And if we take it for granted, it won't be here. And we have always fought for medical freedom. Our founding fathers in chiropractic gone to jail for many, many years for the right to practice and do something other than give drugs and call it health, against great odds and great finances and great power and great intimidation and great all of that stuff. And as they say, you know, live free or die forever. And I know what it's like to be free. I don't ever want to lose it. And I will do what I can for myself and my family and our family and your family to make sure that's maintained, because we're all in it together. If we don't find a way to love each other, respect each other, embrace each other, have the ability to hug each other, there's no way that this group of humans has any choice in this world, and we will end up a slave to powers that be. If you don't see it happening, it's happening before our eyes. The mask is a trial run for your contact tracing, your tracking, your mass vaccination of something we don't need, your chipping, and your control. It is not a movie. It is not a book. It is not a conspiracy theory. It is happening. We have an opportunity still to steer this ship. This ship has not landed in this ugly port that I've just described. This ship has amazing people on it that if they come together and believe and have some faith outside themselves, we can make this change. If you look at what's going on in the world, people are not congregating. They're not allowed to get together in the places that they got together and enjoyed life, whether it's a sporting event, a concert, and more importantly than anything, their church, their synagogue, or their mosque. If there's anything that I don't understand right now, feel free to freaking enlighten me, is that people are not believing in whatever their God is or whoever their God is. If they were, they wouldn't let a government outrank God. And right now, as I see, as these churches are too afraid to open up, these mosques, the synagogues, and they're all acquiescing, it brings tears to my eyes, because if you are allowing the government, this flawed, fractured, corrupt, sometimes well-meaning, but mostly not government, to outrank God, I don't know if there's any hope for any of us. So I'm putting it out there. I haven't heard anybody say anything like that. I'm saying it right now. The time to get up off your knees and start doing is now. So that's all I got to say.
I love it, Doc. And I'm watching. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see the comments coming in. And you may be one of the first saying that, but you're definitely resonating. And let me say, man, it's an honor to be in this movement shoulder to shoulder with you. There's no other place in the world I'd rather be practicing. I'm grateful for you. And I appreciate you coming on, man. And you mentioned Lee Dundas. And just a little preview for those listening, I'm actually going to be having one of these conversations with her on Monday.
Beautiful.
So you think Cohn is fire, wait till you hear from Lee. She's phenomenal. So, Doc, thank you. I appreciate you doing this. It's always a pleasure, and I'll look forward. We'll have to do this again.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, buddy.
Hear more about you next time, not me.
All right. Flip it. You can interview me. How about that?
All right. I'll be the guest interviewer. All right. Guys.
Sounds
Take
good.
care, everyone. Love you all.
All right.
Enjoy this weekend.
Have a good 4th of July, everybody.
Bye-bye.